This episode is on Harry Potter, the first book of Harry Potter. And when I originally started my podcast, I asked my wife, hey, would you want to be on an episode with me? Her first answer was no. And so after a little bit of talking to her about, what all I wanted to do, the first thing she said is, I want to talk about Harry Potter. Harry Potter is her absolute favorite book. I think we go over that here in the podcast. I have to, if I remember correctly. I do know that she talks about how much it means to her, and it kind of, it is definitely an important book, and it's a book that I really enjoy. So again, this is about Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter, and I'm excited to talk about it with Olivia, with somebody who is truly down to her core a Harry Potter fan and has read the books probably more than almost anybody out there. She reads them and rereads them constantly. And so we talk a lot about Harry Potter, but we also talk about what it means to have, comfort books, what it means to read for pleasure, the different aspects of reading in her life. She's somebody who reads 100+ books a year. And so, reading's a very, important part of her life. And so just kind of understanding what all that is and how that started for her at a young age through reading Harry Potter. So it's a great podcast. Excited to have Olivia on. She will definitely be a repeat guest, especially as things are getting started. So again, any comments, suggestions, anything that we can do to make the podcast more enjoyable for you, please leave us a comment. Let us know. We are definitely listening and, want to just help people read and, learn about new books as best as possible. Thanks. Awesome. So we are live. I need to make sure that I'm standing up straight on this one because my last one with Josh, I swear I watched the video and I looked like just hunched and just awful, like garbage. So
speed skating, you walk like this all the time.
I know, it's pretty bad. And just sitting in a chair working all day, I swear my posture is just terrible. So I don't want to look like I sit in a chair and work on my computer all day, which I do. So if I'm ever slouching, make sure to correct me there. Other than that, though, I think the first one went pretty good. I don't think you've listened to it yet. You said you weren't going to listen to any of them.
It makes me uncomfortable listening to podcasts with people I know, but I'll try to be supportive.
Well, I mean, you're on it, so it's about as supportive as you get.
I can't listen to myself. It's not going to happen. So
we'll give it to your mom.
Yeah, tell me if it's good.
But I thought it was only fitting to do Harry Potter as our first one. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think you reread it this time. Did you?
I did, yeah.
You did? Did you actually finish it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Like, when did you finish it?
At the cabin in the middle of the night because she was up so much.
Nice. Talk a little bit louder or pull it up just a little bit closer. So how many times do you think you've read Harry Potter now?
Oh my gosh. Probably 10.
Really? Only 10? I swear it was going to be more than that.
It's
I think since
more.
we've been married, and we've been married now, like, what? I guess Saturday is 6 years. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I mean, at least 5, right?
Yeah.
You've read it.
Probably more than 10 times.
Each one of the kids, and then, I don't know, a couple times in between there.
I usually re-listen every fall. Yeah.
Yeah, re-listen every fall.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're not the only person who does that with Harry Potter.
No.
I feel like it's got a pretty cult-like following. I don't know. I was like looking up stuff online about Harry Potter. It was not my first time reading Harry Potter either. This would be my second time reading Harry Potter. Read it when I was a little kid. But everybody online was like, oh, I read it every single year. I read the first one over and over and over again.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who have a yearly rereading, or mine's usually a re-listen.
Do you? Nothing. You seem all tense. I guess this is your first one. We'll get better. But who do you think's listened to it or read it more? You, your mom, or your brother?
Probably my brother. He's like constantly listening to it.
Really?
Yeah. He always has an AirPod in. And if I see his phone, it's Harry Potter. So probably him, honestly.
Does he read them all or does he just read the first one over and over again?
He reads them all. He'll like start at 1 and go through 7.
Really?
Yeah.
And yet you still beat him at Harry Potter trivia every time we play.
I don't know. He's getting pretty good. So it's like my one claim to fame, and he might beat me.
Do you like listening to it or reading it better?
I honestly like listening to it better. The narrator is so good and it's so comforting, but when you have a 2-year-old, you don't really get to listen to what you want to in the car anymore, so I've had to reread it this time.
Do you like listening to books more than reading them in general, or is it really just Harry Potter?
It's just Harry Potter in general. I like reading better.
Wait, you like listening to better?
I like reading books better, but Harry Potter I like listening to better.
Okay. Yeah. You like, okay, yeah. I got that backwards.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Does he narrate anything else? I haven't even looked.
He narrates The Night Circus.
Okay.
I think it's Aaron Mortensen, which I've read, but I haven't listened to.
Because a narrator can make or break.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've said this in our book club several times, but I'm super picky about narrators.
Yeah, see, I feel like I tend to lean towards audio books over everything else, mostly because I have a hard time just in general reading. I feel like it's it's real slow for me. And so why not listen to it at like 1.2 speed and just like crank through books?
See, I feel like I can read faster than I can listen.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
But I can attest to that. I mean, you basically sit on your Kindle and just tap the next page like at a steady pace. It's like insane.
Yeah.
But that comes from lots and lots of reading. Mm-hmm. So how many books did you end up reading last year?
I think it was 113.
113?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was like, that's not quite two a week, but it is. It's definitely over 2 a week. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Highlights? What was your favorite book of last year?
Oh my gosh. I don't even remember.
Obviously not very memorable then.
Uh-huh. I need my Goodreads.
Yeah, I mean,
one that I loved was The Last Green Valley by Mark Sullivan.
Is that one that we should read here?
Yeah, that one's really good. It's historical fiction, World War II. This is his second World War II historical fiction, and both of them are based on the first one's a real person and the second one's a real family.
Okay.
So, but then
Is it like a Jewish account in World War II? Is it like from whose perspective?
They're from Ukraine, and they're being kicked out of their homes by, oh my gosh, I can't remember. Either the Russians or the Germans. They're being kicked out of their homes, and so they're trying to.
You don't hear a whole lot about the Ukrainian side of World War II. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back to Harry Potter. So you you read 113 books last year. Mm-hmm. Harry Potter still your all-time favorite book?
It is definitely one of them. It's so hard to pick a favorite book. It's probably my favorite comfort book.
Okay. What do you mean by comfort book?
So the first time I read Harry Potter, my mom read it to me.
How old were you?
I think when she started the first one, I was probably 8 or 9.
Okay, so what year would that have been? I could do some math from your birthday, but the first book came out in 1997.
Mm-hmm. So my mom talks about reading it for the first time. She read it for the first time when my brother was a baby.
Which one? Corbin,
yeah. So 2000.
So 2000.
Because it was not popular when it came out.
No, one crazy thing that I read about the book, the first print of this book had, I don't want to get my numbers wrong real quick. I always take notes. 500 copies.
Yeah.
And your first print. Mm-hmm. And she sold 200 of them to friends and family, and then 300 of them went to the library. Which is crazy to think that 300 first edition copies of Harry Potter just went to libraries because nobody else took them. Mm-hmm. Looking back on that now, I bet those are some pretty crazy first edition copies.
So it wasn't popular at all, and either she found it randomly, like at the library, and then gave it to my Aunt Jen, her sister-in-law, while they were in dental school in Kentucky. Their husbands were gone all day at dental school, so it was They just were like read a lot.
And so they read it together?
Yeah. So one of them showed it to the other. Okay. And then that was like her nursing book, like that she read while nursing her baby. And she was obsessed with it. Like she loved it so much.
So didn't she start then waiting for the second one from the get-go? Or had the second one already come out by then?
I think it had already come out.
So she got a couple books in though before she was like waiting.
It would have been only 2, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Because I remember reading the books. So initially, actually, I wasn't allowed to read the books.
Mm-hmm. It was Witchcraft.
It was
Voodoo
Witchcraft.
Mama Juju.
It was Witchcraft in
really?
my family. Oh yeah. Did you not know that?
No.
Oh yeah. So, yeah, my family had just recently joined the Mormon Church. Mm-hmm. And from then my mom was, just, I don't know if she was worried about standing out or what it was, but I remember explicitly not being able to watch the movies or read the books because it was witchcraft for just a little bit though. Because I remember that all changed, I think with the second movie, but with the first one, and she may have only been using that as like an excuse. I don't know what that excuse would have been. Mm-hmm. Maybe she thought it would have scared me or something. Mm-hmm. And she might listen to this and be like, you're remembering it wrong. But I have pretty vivid memories because I had a friend, Kenny, who was reading the book. And I really wanted to read it so that we could go see the movie. Mm-hmm. And because he was super into lizards. And the second one was coming out and there was a giant snake. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to read it so that I could see the movie. And my mom said no. But then that quickly changed. I don't know exactly what changed. But then basically I read the first, second, third, and fourth one just all in a row, like super quick. And then starting with the fifth one, that was the ones that I had to start waiting for. So I do remember going to the local bookstore the day it opens and, pre-ordering Order of the Phoenix and then the next one, and just like binging them the night that we got them.
I'm pretty sure the fifth was the one that I had to start waiting to. I think by the time my mom started reading them to me, the 4 were out.
Yeah.
So I remember waiting for the 5th, 6th, and 7th. But even though I was old enough to read them when they started coming out, my mom still read them to me. So up until the 7th, my mom read them to me. Okay, yeah. So the 5th one came out in 2003, so I would have been 10. That one came out. So you would have been much younger. I don't really want to say how much younger. I'm like 5. Oh my gosh. So it may have been like the 6th, because I think there was like 2 or 3 years in between the next one. It might have been the 6th. So you would have been like 7 or 8, which kind of lines up then. Mm-hmm. But I do remember that was the first one that I read right then and there. And it was exciting back in the day for the Harry Potters to come out. I definitely remember waiting for the 7th. Yeah. It was... Because I think my mom went to Barnes & Noble at midnight. Because they had like a big... Yeah, I did. Release party. I mean, I didn't go to Barnes & Noble's at midnight, but we had like a small bookstore in Eagle River. And I remember pre-ordering my copy and then going and picking it up. I do remember that. Because she went with my uncle. She went with, I think it was Tim. He was there and he flipped to the end. And she got so mad at him. He like picked it up and like flipped to the end. She was so mad. Tim's rereading him again right now too. Is he really? I think he's on book 5 is what he said. Man, these are just books that people just read again and again. So what do you think makes a book, I guess, rereadable? Because there are a lot of books that I will never, ever pick up again. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it had been a good probably 20 years, longer than that, probably 23 or 4 years since I read Harry Potter, the first book. So rereading it was pretty fun. But like that's another one that I mean, the audiobook's surprisingly small for how big the Harry Potter books are. I mean, Jim Dale cruises through Harry Potter in like 7 hours. Oh, the first one. By book 7, it's like 15, 16 hours. Like it. Yeah. But
but I mean, it's a book that I could definitely reread. So what do you think? Like, why for you? You said it's a comfort book for you, but what makes it a comfort book? Is it the story? Is it the memories that you have with your mom reading you the book? Is it just everything all tied up into, high school, college, having kids, and just remembering what Harry Potter does? Like, what is it that makes Harry Potter so special for you, and probably also for a lot of other people out there who read Harry Potter regularly?
It definitely started because my mom read it to me. So it was like very comforting. Some, like we talked about narrators, like some are better than others. My mom should be an audible narrator. Like
Well,
her voice.
we've got the setup now, so she wants to get into the audible game.
Her elementary school teacher used to make her read out loud to the class. Like their class book. Yeah, because she has such a good voice for reading out loud.
That used to terrify me. I don't know if it terrified you, but in elementary school, I just didn't want. I didn't want to be the idiot who was like, oh, Brandon can't read. and it's not like I struggled reading. Like I could read, obviously. But man, that social anxiety at that age, didn't want to be the kid that got picked last for kickball.
Well, I was that kid, so reading was my time to shine. The only thing I was good at. But yeah, so her reading them to me definitely made them special to me. And she's read a lot of books to me, but Harry Potter, it's just magical. Like it's just.
Was Harry Potter like the first chapter book she read to you?
No.
Okay.
She's probably, I think.
So there were other.
She'd read Where the Red Fern Grows to us before.
I love that book.
Yeah, Bridget Terabithia, like those classic children books.
Okay. So even while reading books, Harry Potter stood out from the rest. Okay. So like you said, it brings back memories from your mom reading it to you. Is the story significant to you, or is it just Harry Potter? Like, what is it specifically?
It's become special because of how many times I've reread it.
Okay.
Like the characters are friends. They're special to me, and just how many times I've read it has made it special, I think. Okay. And because of the times in my life that I've reread it, I usually pick up Harry Potter when I'm sad. Like I've reread it after having babies, and when the baby blues set in, I pick up Harry Potter because it's familiar and it's comforting. And I re-listen to it in the car when I'm super anxious. Like in September, I got hit when someone ran a stop sign, and I was really anxious to drive after that because I wasn't doing anything wrong and someone just hit me. So I was really scared to drive, but listening to it in the car calmed me down and made me look forward to driving. Okay. So it's comforting. When I went to Scotland, went to Edinburgh, they have the Elephant Cafe, which is where J.K. Rowling started writing it. And so if you go into the bathroom there, everybody's drawn on the bathroom. They've drawn like quotes from Harry Potter, or they've colored pictures. And somebody wrote in huge letters, Harry, you're home. And that's how I feel about Harry Potter. It's home.
I feel like that's like it's not a unique feeling when it comes to Harry Potter. I mean, Harry Potter definitely has, this world wrapped up into it. And I think some of that comes from the movies. I think those were pretty well done, but I feel like the real diehard fans from Harry Potter, like you said, I read countless reviews just to kind of see what other people's opinions were of the book. And everybody says, oh, I read the first Harry Potter every single year. It's a yearly tradition for me. They'll be like, on Harry Potter's birthday, I go through and I read the whole first book. And it is that kind of special book that a lot of people feel like that they can connect to. And like you said, they feel like they're friends with the characters. And so what about the writing makes it so that you feel like you're friends with the characters? Do you think that that's something special or unique to the way that J.K. Rowling kind of describes the characters, or the lives that they led? Like, I don't know. I don't know many people who lived underneath the stairs, so I feel like it's kind of hard to relate to Harry in some form or another. Unless your parents have died, there's not really a whole lot of direct comparisons to Harry, but still people find that connection. Do you know why? Do you know kind of where that came from with you, or what about when you say Harry Potter, or not Harry Potter, but like the characters are your friends? Like, how did you connect with them?
I think just the way she writes them, they're just so real. Like the way she writes them. That's why people who are like, I haven't read Harry Potter, but I like the movies. Like, no, you don't get it. Like in the books, I love when they're anxious about their homework or they're like, they're studying for exams, and she isn't just like the big adventures in the books. Like it's their everyday life at Hogwarts, and you just want to be there so bad. And the way she writes them, they're just so real. They have, Harry is this big hero, but he still has faults, and especially book 5, he's like super moody, and it just, he doesn't just overcome like Voldemort, like he overcomes like problems from
being in high school.
Yeah, exactly. Like
just kind of the everyday.
His first kiss, like and he's like so confused why she's so emotional. Like,
yeah.
And it just, I know in so many people, it helps them overcome, feel like they can overcome like their challenges.
Okay. So you said there that you feel like people that say, oh, I really like the movies, don't really quite get to know the characters. So it might be a little bit of
especially Dumbledore. Oh my gosh.
A little bit of a book snob sort of thing.
I know.
And the books are always better than the movies.
They are. Well, not always, but.
But in this case, they definitely are.
Yes.
So the one thing that I was kind of paying attention to this time rereading it, because the first time I read it, I don't think I had seen the movies yet, because I think that was a prerequisite. Again, going back to these books are Witchcraft and Of the Devil. I think that was one of the prerequisites for me to watch the movie, because again, I was pretty little at the time, was to read the books. So I read the first book and then I watched the first movie. I think that's the order that happened. So then this time I was really going back and being like, okay, well, what did they actually leave out? I feel like with the first book, they did a pretty good job.
Yeah. It's a short book.
It is a short book. I don't feel like they left out a whole lot.
No.
I mean, there were definitely some things at the very end with kind of getting to the Sorcerer's Stone, when they go down into under the hatch, under Fluffy, and, they're down there. There were definitely a few extra challenges that they left out. Mm-hmm. There was also, I believe, one Quidditch game that was left out.
Yeah.
Which I feel like would have been cool in the movies. But other than that, I feel like they almost nailed it on the head. There was also a little bit about the Dursleys. The very beginning with the Dursleys, I feel like if you could possibly, you do hate the Dursleys a little bit more in the book.
And Snape.
And Snape, yeah. You really do not like Snape, which is really funny because a lot of people say that Snape is their favorite character.
Oh, no.
When they watch the movies, they're like, oh, I just love Snape. He was just always there for Harry.
Mm-hmm. Alan Rickman does a good job.
He does. He kills it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little sad to see who they cast in this next go round, because they're remaking it all with HBO into a series. Are you excited for that?
I am, actually. I know some people are like throwing fits about it, but I don't understand. It's
more
Harry Potter.
It's just more Harry Potter.
If it's bad, then I won't watch it. But I don't know. HBO does a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, of all the groups to pick it up, I feel like it's in the safest hands with HBO.
Yeah.
But I also am a little sad.
Also, they ruined Game of Thrones. So
at the very end.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't read the books.
I mean, I didn't read the books either.
I didn't really watch Game of Thrones, too.
I was not thrilled with the last season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So, but I also don't know if J.K. Rowling has anything to do with this HBO series. She's a little bit on the
I thought I read that she was being brought on as a producer.
Is she?
I think, yeah, you told me that. She's being brought on.
I don't know. I tell you a lot of things.
I know.
I just make things up sometimes.
Some things make it through the filter.
Yeah.
Harry Potter makes it through.
Yeah, it's like Harry Potter makes it through, and it's like, oh, can you grab this for me?
That's it.
That doesn't quite.
That's it.
Just gets stopped. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. If she is being brought on, though, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I hope they don't change it a whole lot, though. I don't really know how you're going to do a whole season of book 1 and 2, though.
Yeah, those would definitely be stretching it.
Because I was thinking about it, and if they just read the book, it would only be 8 hours long.
Yeah.
So they could add the entire thing of the book in 8 hours, and that's about the show. So, and obviously you're not going to read the stuff about, it was a warm summer's day and stuff like that. So I think they're going to have to add a little bit of fluff to it.
Yeah,
it just depends on
probably.
like what the fluff is. Mm-hmm. And also who they cast. I just don't see how you could do it any better than that initial cast.
I know.
Outside of like Hermione Granger, I was rereading the books this time, and Hermione's homely in the books.
She is.
And Emma Watson is not.
Yeah,
she is a little bit in the first one, I guess. Like, I don't think they really thought that she was going to turn into like Emma Watson, like Beauty and the Beast, Emma Watson. But yeah, in the book, she's like a hot mess.
Yeah.
Do you feel like out of all of the characters, and this is just me being married to you, not the hot mess part, but do you feel like Hermione is like who you relate to the most in that series? Or do you feel like it's Malfoy? Or
Do I relate to Malfoy? Thank you.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness.
Like, who is it?
I mean, there's definitely Hermione and me, like the freaking out about tests and stuff. And
Yeah, I just remember being in dental hygiene school, and listening to her talk about having to study and stuff. I was like,
yeah, I definitely have that.
been there, done that.
And the not wanting to break rules.
Yep.
That's
Also
definitely me.
also very there. Mm-hmm. Okay. But would you say that's who you would probably relate to the most? Or do you just pull little bits and pieces of everybody?
Probably Hermione.
Really?
But you definitely see bits and pieces of yourself in everyone. That's one reason people love it. It's relatable. Like Ron's insecurity. I definitely see that myself.
I feel like Ron's not in this first one a whole lot. I mean, maybe a little bit. Mm-hmm. I just don't feel like he was. I feel like Ron shines in the second one.
Yeah.
With all of the spiders and snakes and his car and all of that kind of stuff. Getting to know the Weasleys a little bit more. Mm-hmm. He's kind of not in this one as much. But again, it's only a couple hundred pages. It's not super long.
Yeah.
So is this a book that you would, or that you plan on reading multiple times to our kids?
100%.
Really?
Yeah. Our toddler's already heard it in the car.
Well, yeah.
Times.
I mean, between that and Paw Patrol theme song
Yes.
on repeat, I'd take Harry Potter any day. So what if our kid doesn't like Harry Potter?
It'll hurt. It'll hurt.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you feel like Harry Potter is like one of those books that I guess you take personally? Like if somebody's like, oh, man, I just really didn't like Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Because like my dad's the kind of, my dad's the kind of guy. I mean, he doesn't like Harry Potter, not because he's ever read it, or I think even because he's seen all the movies.
Because he doesn't like popular things.
Yeah. He's like the
wants to be
hipster
cool,
before
yeah.
hipsters. And so Harry Potter definitely does not fit into that, which is weird because, I mean, he was like a big Chronicles of Narnia fan and a big Lord of the Rings fan. Mm-hmm. You feel like Harry Potter could just like slide in there into like that fantasy fit, but it just doesn't. So is that something you feel like is like is a diss to Harry Potter a diss to you?
It is. It's so personal.
Yeah.
But you say it could fit into the fantasy realm. I don't read fantasy. Like
Really?
I don't really read fantasy. I'm not a huge fantasy fan.
Because your mom and your brother are, so they read all of those
my
books.
mom is
They
a
read,
huge fantasy fan.
They read like the Fable Havens.
I read those when I was little.
Okay.
I read more fantasy when I was little.
Okay.
But now the only fantasy that I read is Harry Potter. But it's not even fantasy to me. It's more magical, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I think that kind of fits around the realm of fantasy, but maybe not.
Yeah.
So what role do you think fantasy plays in reading?
It's not so much magical as the magic itself. It's magical as like heartwarming. Like it's just
okay.
like the friendships are magical, which is
so you like the characters.
cheesy.
You like the characters and their development more than the world itself, would you say? Or do you really like
I love the world.
okay. So you fantasized about getting a letter in the mail and attending Hogwarts and
Oh yeah.
because you actually
I'm dying to go to Harry Potter World in Florida.
Yeah, we do need to go do that. But you actually sent your brothers letters.
Oh yeah. Yes, I did.
Up. So what did you do for that?
I found the template online and printed it off on paper and like made it look old and had my mom sign it.
Who was the most excited out of all your brothers?
My youngest for sure, Truman.
The one who's read it more than you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He loves Harry Potter.
I bet that was pretty exciting for him. So what role do you think fantasy plays then in, I guess, reading in general? So do you think it's important? Do you think most people use it as like an escape? Like, is Harry Potter an escape for you? What is it that fantasy does for people? Because it's a pretty big genre of books. And again, it's not really my cup of tea either. I'm definitely more into the like historical fiction / nonfiction classics kind of realm. Like that's really what I enjoy. A little bit more thinking books, but that's not to say that the fantasy section at Barnes and Nobles isn't popping. So what role do you think that plays for people?
I think all reading's an escape in some form or another. It's just what kind of escape do you want? Fantasy does seem like a little bit more of an escape because it's, you know, magical and made up worlds, but except nonfiction, you know, every book is a made up world. So it's just what escape do you want?
So is that how you feel about your reading? Again, 113 books or whatever it is. That's a lot of a lot of different worlds and a lot of escaping. So is that your primary reason for reading? Like what is it? I guess you said you don't read a lot of fantasy. So is it not for escaping or what does that feel like for you?
It serves different purposes at different times in my life. Sometimes I read for knowledge. You know, sometimes I want to learn more about something, so I'll read a book about it. And sometimes it's an escape, like especially just of having had a baby, being overwhelmed, you know, trying to figure out 2 kids, you know, being up at night. It's been an escape. Like I've been reading a lot more lighter reads that I can just kind of mindlessly read, like get lost in, and started reading Harry Potter again so I could just kind of get lost in it while I'm up at 2 a.m. trying to get her back to sleep. And I started reading it immediately after we had our first one because it was a very traumatic birth, and it just kind of, you know, everything was okay in Harry Potter. Like, you know, I was in this unfamiliar territory as a new mom with a very hard baby. And it was something comforting and people that I knew, and, you know, it made me not feel so alone in the new world that I was navigating because I was back in my favorite world.
So I feel like reading does definitely give that to people. That's one of, like, from what I've been researching, one of the main reasons that people read is going to be for that kind of escapism aspect of it. And again, I don't read a whole lot. That's kind of what this podcast is about, is me trying to read a little bit more.
Hi, I don't read. Listen to my podcasts about books.
Exactly. But hey, I've actually, out of most of my friends, I'd say I read on the more side of a lot of my friends, which is really sad. And so that's kind of where I want to be able to relate to people who don't read a whole lot, you know, make suggestions for people who may not know where to start, learn more about books, or just learn about books that maybe they'll never read ever. There's probably a large swath of people who will never read Harry Potter ever. And so maybe they'll learn a few fun things about Harry Potter and tuck that one away in their back pocket. But for people who don't read, I mean, what do you think that lack of escape through books leads to? Like, do you think that's a positive aspect to be able to escape through books? Because I think that sometimes it can be a negative too. Like, you get too absorbed into something and you kind of lack the desire to be connected with people here in reality. So you just get constantly absorbed into books and books and books. But I guess it's probably a little bit more healthier outlet than others. That's our dog.
The dog.
But
I think everyone finds their own escape. And it's personal. Like, there's video games which, do nothing for me, or I don't know, baking or exercise, and reading to me is a better escape, but that's just because I like it better. So I don't know if I can say, like, oh, you need a stress relief, you should read, because that doesn't do it for some people. So
you're of the opinion that reading is not necessarily better than other things? I guess other escapes?
To me it is, but I don't want to sound like a snob. Like,
okay. Okay. Yeah,
because they're
I mean, there are definitely some less constructive habits.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I think you can get lost in really anything, like you said. I mean, you can get lost in working out. You can get lost in video games. You can get lost in television or sports or really anything. But
I have learned a lot through reading. That's kind of how I have learned always. But you've also learned a lot through like podcasts.
That's true. Because I don't read a whole lot, but I do listen to a ton of podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think whatever you choose to like escape with, like, you can choose to learn with it too. Like, you can choose to better yourself with it, or you can choose to waste your time. Like, I
guess that is true. There's kind of a difference between escaping to waste time and then escaping with like an added like self-improvement aspect to it.
Like, there are books that I've read that have changed me and made me better, and I've learned. But there are also books that are stupid, and I read for fun, and I don't put on my Goodreads because I don't want my mom to see. And I read to stay awake in the middle of the night. But it just is what you choose to do with your free time, I think, with your hobbies.
So do you think reading is important for everybody, though? So some people, like you said, connect to different things in a different way. But do you think there should be like a bare minimum bar for people in reading? Just purely for the value that it provides, whether that's, learning, language, escape, kind of your ability to emotionally connect with characters. I mean, some people might say that Harry Potter is, a dumb book about, a wizard. My dad could go on and on about Harry Potter and
calls it the little wizard boy.
Yeah, the little wizard boy. But I think there's also that emotional connection that you had with those characters, and you kind of learn kind of that empathy. You learn how to, like you said, overcome those problems. Harry overcomes a lot of things, not just Voldemort. And you learn how to cope with your stress with Hermione, and you learn how to not be so awkward with Ron. and there's lots of different things that come about through that whole process. And do you think that's, I guess, valuable in today's time where people can consume content on TikTok just constantly, or on Instagram, or, there's so much content in this world. Like, do books still really have a place in that? And like, where would you put that on the pedigree of importance?
I do think reading's important. It's like you were talking about TikTok and what people do today with their time. It's all about instant gratification. I think that's a big problem today, especially with like our daughter's age. Like, you've seen her watch TV that has commercials and she loses it.
I know streaming has completely ruined that
she
kid.
is used to getting the content she wants immediately. So I think reading is a slower, it's
You definitely
slower
have to be
pace. Like you don't get the exciting part at the beginning. You have to get there and you slowly form connections with characters and you slowly learn from it. It's not instant education like watching a reel on Instagram or instant gratification or entertainment like TikTok. Like it is definitely a slower burn, but I think a higher payout because you're using your brain more and putting your emotions and your heart into it more.
Yeah, you definitely kind of invest more into a book.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I can watch a movie, worst case scenario, I'm out 2.5 hours, or if it's Avatar, I'm out 6 hours or whatever it is for that movie. But with a book, you do invest quite a bit more time. Harry Potter's the first one's a little bit less of an investment, but a lot of books that I've read, you're talking 15, 16, 17 hours invested into this book just to kind of figure out what's going on. And so you really have to really pull, I guess, more value out of it than kind of that instant gratification like you were talking about. And I feel like that is important with books. Mm-hmm. I do think that was lost. And I think that was definitely something that was lost in my life. I went throughout high school basically doing the minimal amount of work I could to make sure that my parents didn't get mad at me. Mm-hmm. And so really what that meant was like Spark Notes, never really completed any books, just read through Spark Notes, wrote, basic, bland, generic essays that I knew that the teacher would want. That meant, doing my homework in between classes and, just kind of rushing through that whole process and not really taking the time to really, I guess, pull things from what I was learning. And that's not to say that, I didn't get anything out of high school, but I think that more and more kids are kind of going through that process, being able to really not invest in any of that learning. It's that TikTok, instant gratification. ChatGPT can write my essay. I can get all the information I need from Spark Notes. I can, do all those things and not have to work hard. And reading a book can be a little bit of work. Mm-hmm. Even Harry Potter, you know what I mean? Like it's fun work, but it's still work. Mm-hmm. I feel like you get something out of it for putting that in.
Yeah, definitely.
But so you read quite a bit now. Have you always read a bunch throughout high school and everything like that? So what would you say is your favorite genre of book? Well, you said that kind of...
It's changed.
Okay.
It's changed as I've grown up.
And how has it changed?
When I was in like elementary school, junior high, I did like fantasy a lot. Like I loved Fablehaven. I loved Percy Jackson, like The Ranger's Apprentice, all those series. And then more into high school, I was into, this is so embarrassing. I was way into the, I'm a human, but I'm in love with a werewolf or a vampire or
nice.
That kind of genre.
The forbidden love genre.
Yes.
That is something that I can pretty definitively say I don't think we'll ever make it.
Twilight.
Nope. We'll never make it to the podcast. I do have a little bit of my dad in me.
You should do it.
I do have a little bit of my dad in me in that there are some things that I will just make fun of regardless of whether or not I know anything about them. And Twilight is one of them. So yeah, that will never happen. Again, I'm not willing to invest my time into that book. Nothing against those that love Twilight. But not my cup of tea.
Yeah. So I was way into those in high school and like romance in general, but specifically those. And then into college, I didn't really get to read just because of college work.
Did you read any books in college?
Oh yeah, it's like
Well,
summer,
no,
Christmas break.
I mean, like, did you
Like
read
for college classes?
Yeah, any books for college classes?
Not until because first I was dietetics, so I had all like science classes, and then for dental hygiene, like you don't have any reading classes. But in my London study abroad, yes, I had to read some books.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I had to read The Waves by Virginia Woolf, which is awful. I can't even tell you what it was about. It was so boring. I had to read a couple others. I can't remember right now. I think that was it, honestly.
Because I think I made it through college. I had to read excerpts of a book for like one of my business classes, but I'm fairly certain I made it through college without reading a single book.
Yeah. If I hadn't done study abroad, I wouldn't have read one. It was all because I had science classes.
Which is sad, right? Mm-hmm. I mean that's like the epitome of, I don't know, our education for thousands and thousands and thousands of years was people read about people, read about history, read about, different things. And I'm sure had I chosen a different major, there may have been books that I would have read. But
Quinn, our sister-in-law, had to read a lot. She was an English major.
Yeah, but I feel like English shouldn't be the only degree where you have to read.
I agree.
I mean, even
in my English, like gen ed classes that I had to take, but there wasn't any reading. It was all writing.
Even if it's not to like learn something specific for your major, I feel like one thing that education should give you is like that experience of learning through reading, because that's something that'll stay with you throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So like I'm never going to be, and I promise you, I will never be in another classroom with a professor lecturing me about literally anything. I cannot tell you how awful college was for the handful of times that I actually went to class. But the one thing that I feel like would have been actually beneficial learning from college would have been an appreciation and a love for reading, because that goes on, far past your time in college, continually helping you to learn and grow. But I feel like the education system isn't even like, that's not even remotely a goal of theirs. Like you can get pushed from K through, your master's degree or your PhD, and they will have never tried to foster that love of reading with anybody.
Yeah, my love of reading was not instilled in me by school. It was my mom. Like it was 100% my mom.
Why do you think that is? I feel like that's such a oversight in education.
Mm-hmm. It's probably just not valued.
I mean, I can't believe that that's not something that would be valued. Because
I don't even know what they value, though, because I didn't learn anything in school that I need in my life today.
Yeah, I mean, seriously,
Didn't learn how to do taxes or anything like that.
I know. Thank goodness we have TurboTax.
Mm-hmm.
But, we've been kind of throwing around the idea of homeschooling our kids and kind of the way that we'd want to do that. And in my mind, a lot of what we would do would be basically, a lot of reading. I mean, you learn so much through reading. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be just historical books. I mean, it could be Harry Potter. That could be something that you learn and you grow. You develop empathy for characters and things like that. And you also develop that love for reading and all of that. And so to me, that just seems like kind of the easiest path towards, a lifelong love for education. Mm-hmm. I just don't see why that's not even remotely a focus. But it's been
one thought is it's more work. Like it's more work for students, and it seems like nowadays they just want to make
you pass.
Yeah, make you pass, make it easy so kids will want to do it because kids like don't want to work hard anymore. It's
true.
also more work, I think. Maybe as a teacher, I don't know. It's definitely as a parent more work. Like I can throw a show on for her and go do something else.
That's true.
But reading, I have to sit down and be with her, and that's why I'm so huge on reading. Is we have to sit down and we have to connect. You know, it's not just we're not doing separate things. Like we're together, and that's why,
Yeah,
always reading to her.
I agree with that. It is definitely more difficult because there are a lot of times when I'm like, I'd just rather watch Super Mario and call it a day.
Yeah.
But it is, I don't know, I think it's probably one of the most important skills that I feel like I lost out on as a kid. I just think there was so much that I didn't get to learn, or that I'm now trying to play catch up and read all of these books that I feel like I should have read. That, now I'm 30 and I'm just now like starting to develop that love for reading that could have been fostered from, like you said, like a much younger age with a little bit more effort from the school system and from, teachers. Not that I didn't have great teachers or anything, but I just don't think either the books that they chose weren't right, or I don't know.
It's hard to pick which books are right because different books are right for different people. Like
That's true.
different people connect to different books and learn more from different books.
Yeah, but you got to pick at least one.
I would hate to be in charge of picking books for education.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, just a little bit of everything, I guess.
Yeah.
Until you can figure out what you like.
So you didn't read that much in high school. I read a lot of books in high school.
Like I said,
also the classes you sign up for.
I mean, I was in all the AP classes.
Did you take AP literature?
No, I didn't take AP literature.
That's where I read a lot of like the classics and stuff, and AP English and all that. Did you take AP English?
No.
Yeah, see, you took AP chemistry.
I took honors English though, but I could get through honors English and get an A with just Spark Notes. So I was like, why do I need to do anything else but Spark Notes? Like it was that kind of, it's the instant gratification before ChatGPT was, getting on there and being able to read an entire book in 20 minutes instead of 3 days.
I think so. I didn't do that. I would read the books because I already loved reading.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't installed like from school forcing me to read books. Like I already loved it mostly because of my mom.
I mean, my mom says she made us read a lot too. And I think she did. I mean, I read quite a few books while I was homeschooled. But
that's what I'm saying about like different people have different escapes. Some people don't like reading. Or
that's true.
Like it at different points in their life.
Yeah, maybe it is just a point in your life kind of thing where you have to. But I do think it's just valuable. Like, I don't know. I think the story of Harry Potter is something that most people can connect to, at least at a small level. You might not get somebody who rereads it every single year, or, goes all the way to wherever, Scotland or Ireland, just to visit the place where.
I was already there on study abroad, but
you definitely made that little.
I did do the studio tour in London.
Extra trip to go make sure that you saw where she wrote it. And all that kind of stuff.
You can walk through the graveyard behind it. It has a bunch of characters' names on tombs where she got them.
Were they actual dead people?
Yeah, where she got her names.
So she just walked around and was like, I'm going to steal that
There's
name.
like a McGonagall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because they're like different names.
Yeah, I mean, they're all kind of like Old English names, I guess.
There's a lot of them in that cemetery right behind the cafe.
That's awesome. Guess you can get inspiration from anywhere.
Yeah.
But I guess to wrap things up, what's been the best thing about rereading Harry Potter this time?
This time? One, it keeps me awake at night.
Also very good.
And it's been comforting this time. You know, baby blues, recovering from a C-section. It's started to feel really sad and overwhelmed. Like, okay, I can't do this. Like, I can't do another baby. I can't do 2 kids. And it's just, it comforts me. It gives me confidence, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were to recommend Harry Potter to somebody who's never read it, what would you say? I mean, like, I don't know many people who don't know the story of Harry Potter. At this point, it's pretty much like...
actually not one that I like recommend to people because it's so personal. Because like if they don't like it, it would like crush me.
I think I remember you saying that with the book club that you do. You don't want to...
Yeah, I had October's book, and so I wanted to pick like a Halloween book. So I was gonna pick Harry Potter, and then I was like, I can't sit here and have Harry Potter picked apart because your mom hasn't read it. I don't think she said she hadn't, or it had been like years and years and years.
Maybe because it's witchcraft.
Probably. Well, she just said she could never get into it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everyone in book club had read it. And so I can't sit here and have it picked apart or have someone say they don't like it. Like, I will cry. Because it's so personal.
So you don't recommend it to anybody then?
I don't really recommend it to people who haven't read it just because I don't want them to not like it. But if I meet someone who loves it, then we're bonded already.
Instantly connected.
Yes.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate Harry Potter?
10.
10 out of 10.
Yes.
No greater book
No.
on the planet.
There are other really good books.
Okay.
That serve different purposes, like I said. But as far as comfort books, escapes, 10 out of 10.
Would you say that Harry Potter is... Because I think the first Harry Potter I would probably rank... I don't know. I'd probably
She's
give
definitely finding her groove.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 7. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not my favorite one, but it does
It's not my favorite one.
It definitely does introduce the world pretty well. Like, you get to know some of like the key characters, obviously. It doesn't have my favorite characters in it by this point. So, and it's also very short.
Mm-hmm. It does make you love like Harry already. Like, it's just a sweet little 11-year-old boy with no family. No one loves him. And
yeah, I mean, you do feel bad for the kid. But like, it's not my favorite of the Harry Potters for sure.
No, it's not my favorite.
And I also...
The 4th is my favorite.
The 5th is my favorite. Just because I love Sirius.
Yeah.
So, and that's the book with the most about him. But I do think... I don't know. It does a good job of introducing it. One thing I didn't like about it reading this time, though, was how little they actually talk about the plot of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, the plot of the book essentially is Harry has to save the Sorcerer's Stone from being stolen by what he thinks is Snape, but ends up being Voldemort. Mm-hmm. And that is literally probably the last 50 pages. The rest of the book is all introduction into the world, which is fun. You know, you got some Quidditch in there. You've got, you got some animals in there. You got dragons, you got trolls, you got all these different things that just like Norbert, like what the heck is Norbert doing in this book? You know what I mean? Like, it just, there's like a whole section on that. And then at the very end, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to go down this little trapdoor and actually follow through with the plot. So that was one thing that I didn't really love about the first book, but which is what makes it a 7 for me. Mm-hmm. Later on, if you look at Harry Potter as a whole, I think it is one of my favorite series. And I've read the Chronicles of Narnia, and I've read Harry Potter. It's about the extent of my fantasy series. I know that on my list to read, I want to read all the Lord of the Rings, and I want to read the Dune series, just so that I can have a few more fantasy options in there, because I do enjoy it. And I feel like there is stuff you can learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Do you hear Jim whining?
I think that's a motorcycle. It sounds just like our dog, though.
Yeah. No, I think he's whining at the door.
But I would definitely give it a 7. As far as must read, or just kind of, I guess, 3 different categories. I only gave Josh 2 categories. I said must read or, fun read. But I'll do must read, fun read, or don't read. It's kind of like your 3 categories with Harry Potter. Where would you rank what would you say Harry Potter is? Is Harry Potter a must read for people?
It will be for our kids.
It's like you must read Harry Potter or you live underneath the stairs
Yes.
until you can appreciate
Exactly.
Harry's life.
I should probably call it a fun read, but for me, it's a must read.
It's a must read.
Yes.
See, I might even rank it a must read, mainly because of the cultural significance that Harry Potter's had.
Definitely.
I feel like most fantasy probably falls into the fun read, but every once in a while you get something that is just so impactful that I feel like it does fall into the must read. The must read category. I think
There's
Chronicles
so
of Narnia kind of falls into that for me. I mean, I just think C.S. Lewis is amazing.
Yeah.
And the amount of comparisons and, lessons that you can learn throughout that series is insane. And I think Harry Potter does fall into that same category. I think it is one of those books that's really fun and sometimes gets lumped into the kids genre where I read this in grade school, but there's still a lot you can learn from Harry.
Yeah, there are so many quotes that
Yeah.
are impactful.
Yeah, Dumbledore's a wise old man. Mm-hmm. So
When he talks about his mom and he says, love as powerful as your mother's leaves its own mark. To have been loved so deeply will give us some protection forever. That, as a mom, gets me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think, is kind of what kind of bumps it into the must read for me. The cultural significance, the story.
Yeah. It's a must read, but don't tell me if you don't like it.
Yeah. Everybody has to like it around this household.
Yes.
One of our kids is bound to just be like, I can't do it.
Yeah, our toddler's going to hate it just to spite me.
Oh, for sure. Any other significant quotes from Harry Potter that you feel like are life-changing that you'd like to leave here at the end? I like the mother one. I think that's powerful. Again, these are things that you can pick up from, that you can learn. It kind of inspires you to be a better parent.
Yeah.
I mean, if this world could have anything, it's probably better, more involved parents. That would fix infinitely more problems than anything else. So, again, another great lesson learned from Harry Potter. Anything else?
One of my favorite quotes is in the 6th book, and I don't even know what lesson it teaches, but it's when Harry and Dumbledore. I mean, do you remember the 6th at all?
Dude, again, I've read it one time and it was probably 10 years ago. So but
Harry and
I have
Dumbledore-
watched the movies
Yes.
recently.
I make you watch the movies.
Yeah, make me watch them probably twice a year.
Yeah.
We sit down and watch the whole thing.
Well, every time we go to a hotel, I swear they're on TV.
Yeah, it's either that or The Office, and I usually lean towards The Office, and you usually lean towards Harry Potter. So depends on the night.
But when they're leaving the cave in the 6th one,
Keep slumping.
do you remember the cave?
The cave where
There's a Horcrux.
the Horcrux is. Yeah,
So they're leaving the cave, and
there's fire water or something. I think.
yeah. Dumbledore says to Harry, so Dumbledore is really weak because he's just drinking this potion that really is hard on him.
Yeah, that's what will eventually kill him, right?
No.
Or would have.
Oh my gosh, we don't have time to get into this.
Oh
no. The ring is killing him slowly.
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
But okay. So, but he has to drink this potion, and it's just like really weakened him. And so Harry's like helping him leave, and he says something like, "Don't worry, like I'm gonna get you back." And Dumbledore says, "I'm not worried." So I know the exact quote. He says,
Go for it.
"I'm not worried," Dumbledore said, his voice a little stronger despite the freezing cold. "I'm with you." And that quote, like, I bawl every time. Like, I was re-listening to it in the fall, and when he says that, I just start bawling. Like, one of the main points of Harry Potter is, what makes Harry stronger than Voldemort is love. Just that is just like true love right there. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
That quote just makes me bawl. And I think as a parent, that's why it made me cry so hard this last time.
Yeah, just to have somebody like completely trust you like that.
I'm not worried. I'm with you.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing before we wrap it up. The Deathly Hallows.
Oh my
Were those even an idea in this book?
No.
It like kind of. I mean, I
sometimes
know you
feel like
complain about them a lot.
I do.
you hate them, and that's like what everybody. I mean, like people are always like on the back of their car. It's got the Deathly Hallows tattoo. The Deathly Hallows tattoo. It's what people associate with Harry Potter because it's kind of a cool symbol. Mm-hmm. But rereading it this time, I kind of get why it makes you so mad. Because it's like not even remotely thought of in the first one. In the first one, they talk about the invisibility cloak, and Ron literally says, "Those are super rare. There's only a couple of them." Mm-hmm. Meaning that there's more than one.
Well, she addresses that in the seventh. She says that it's the only true invisibility cloak. All other ones eventually like wear off. Like they stop working over time, or they don't make you completely invisible. They just make you like kind of transparent, chameleon-like, like you can blend into your surroundings.
Gotcha.
But that it's the only true invisibility cloak.
And also the Sorcerer's Stone, which is supposed to be the whatever it's called. I can't remember.
Yeah.
What is it called?
I don't remember now.
Guys, this is really embarrassing.
I don't like the Deathly Hallows.
But it's made by Nicholas Flamel. How is it supposed to be made by somebody but also given to by death?
That's why I don't like the Deathly Hallows. I feel like, especially, I don't feel like she thought of them in the first book. Sometimes I read the first book and I feel like she didn't think she would write another book.
I mean, with only 500 copies printed.
Yeah. I think she was like, oh, I have this idea. Like, this world is cool. Let's write a book about it.
I mean, she definitely set up some stuff in the future.
Yeah.
Like Voldemort didn't die, and I don't know. She gave herself room to play.
Yeah.
For future books, but I think the Deathly Hallows at the end, it's like it was a stretch in the first book. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, the Sorcerer's Stone isn't.
Is it not?
No, it's the ring that Dumbledore wears.
I thought the Sorcerer's Stone, because it made you alive forever, was the same thing.
No, the stone.
The Resurrection Stone.
The Resurrection Stone, yes. No, it makes you see people who have died.
Oh. Well, then I had this all backwards.
No, it's the ring that Dumbledore wears.
Aren't they both red in the movies?
Yeah, but they're not the same.
Well, that's what messed me up.
Just cut that.
Yeah, we'll just edit that one out. Okay, so you rated a 10 and a must read. Mm-hmm. I give it a 7 and a must read. I think it's a pretty good book. Mm-hmm. But I will caveat that it's a 7 and a must read if you read the series.
Yes, definitely.
Don't stop at the first one.
Yeah,
because the first one
I would agree with
is
that.
not the worst one, but it's definitely not the best one.
No, it's definitely not.
The fourth is the most fun.
Yeah, that's why it's my favorite. It's the most magical.
The fifth one has the best characters.
Yeah, and the best character dies.
Don't spoil it for those like 10 people who haven't watched the movie or read the book. And if you reread them, Harry Potter could change your life.
Yep.
That's what it did for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's home.
It's home. All right. I think that's everything. We'll have to do this again. Yeah. Mostly because I don't have a lot of guests yet. And we got to crank some content out for everything so we can keep reading books. Also, it keeps me honest, keeps me reading. Yep. Otherwise, I won't read. Mm-hmm. I'll get back into a slump. All right. Thank you for listening to the Bookly podcast. We will be back here next week with another book. Please look at our website at www.booklypodcast.com for a book schedule so that you can either read along or pick out a couple books that you might want to read with us in the future, or listen to podcasts for books that you may never read ever, but want to just learn more about. And also, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what we can do to make the podcast any better. So we're always open to any sort of comments, suggestions, and we do read them all. So please submit anything that you have and let us know how we can take this podcast to the next level. Thank you.